Hello, my name is Gail Seiler, and I'm representing Betrayal Project USA. We are a victim led organization dedicated to exposing institutional betrayal, honoring those who were harmed, and pursuing justice for crimes committed again under the guise of public health, especially COVID-19. You can learn more about our work, view victim stories, submit your own story, or get involved by visiting our website at betrayalprojectusa.org. You can also follow us on Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, Spotify, X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, many other social media, which can be found either on our website or by searching Betrayal Project USA. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with Belinda York. Belinda's young son was killed in an American hospital on American soil in the state of California. Belinda, first of all, thank you for being willing to tell your story publicly, and for all you do since this has happened to you. Tell everyone about who Jason was.
Jason was our second born, our second son. My husband was as excited about our second son as he was about the first one, very excited about another boy. Jason and his older brother, Brian, were just best friends, buddies. They did everything together, best friends. Brian was Jason's best man at his wedding, but Brian won't have that opportunity. Brian won't be able to have his brother as his best man because we've lost him. Jason loved sports. He loved soccer. He loved riding his quad. He loved riding BMX bikes. He built a track out in front of our house. All the neighborhood kids would all come and ride, and they enjoyed those times together. He's just a really good man. Both of my boys were very good, never in trouble. They loved life. Jason met his wife to be in high school when they were juniors, and they graduated together. It's just, I miss him so much. It's been really hard for me and my husband, but Jason he was the best.
And Jason was a husband, a father, a son, a brother, a friend to people, and he was obviously very healthy.
Very healthy, hard work.
Yeah.
He had a wife. He had 3 children when he passed. He was a heavy equipment operator. Most of the time he was working in the Bay Area. So he was gone all week. He would come home usually Friday and usually pack up Saturday or Sunday or Monday and head back up to the Bay Area. So he was up there during the week. And he got sick while he was working. And he just knew it was a sinus infection. He had many in the past. He'd had sinus surgery in the past, but that never resolved the problem. He still had infections. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't able to come home when he got sick. He was trying to treat himself before he came home on Friday. And when he came home on Friday, he went directly to the urgent care so he could try to get maybe antibiotics or something. Mm-hmm. His mom picked him up to take him to urgent care in Clovis. And they did, of course, the testing. And as soon as he tested positive for COVID, they showed him the back door.
Mm. What time frame was this? This was in 2021, right? That he went for the testing.
It would have been August 17, 16, 15, 13th, I guess.
Of 2021.
Friday, August 13th. He went in and got tested positive, they said. They did get him an antibiotic, so they picked that up. They went home, but by that time he was so sick that I think he just wanted to stay in bed. It takes a while to get over one when it gets that bad. And then Sunday, my daughter-in-law called again and said that he wasn't feeling any better. She was going to call Monday morning to see if they would give him maybe a stronger antibiotic to see what else he needed. So they did call that in. I picked that up Monday afternoon. But by Tuesday morning, At 2 o'clock in the morning, she called me and said that all he wanted to do was go to sleep and not wake up. He was in so much pain. So I drove up. They live up the hill from us, 30 minutes. So I drove up there to pick him up. He crawled in the back of my car and told me to take it easy because any movement was really hurting his head. His lips weren't blue. He wasn't short of breath. It was just a headache. And that's, as far as I know, that's all he had, was just a severe headache. So I took him down to Clovis Community Hospital ER, and my daughter-in-law had a friend that worked there. She was going to look after him. So she felt comfortable going there. So we pulled up to the ER and got out of the car. And the nurse told him, we're so busy, you're going to have to sit in this hard fold-up chair for probably 6 or 7 hours. That's the soonest we'd be able to see you. And my son knew he could not do that. With his head hurting so bad, he had to lay down. So he crawled back in the car. The nurse just wasn't welcoming at all. He was very harsh. And I was really upset with the nurse. I said, are you just going to let him go home and die and not even try to help him? And he said, well, if you can get him back out, we'll check his vitals. And I had to move my car. I was in the way, so I had to go move my car. When I came back, they had him in a wheelchair, had him on oxygen, and they were rolling him into the ER. So I went back to my car, and I was just going to wait out there for a few hours. I figured they're going to treat him, release him, and we would go home. Mm-hmm. And he texted me and said, I will just be here for a few days. I'm feeling better. So they must have been giving him some pain medication. But at that time, I only thought the people dying in hospitals were the ones that were older, the ones that were sickly. I did not realize they were killing young people. I did not know they were going to do this. But from that point, my daughter took over. The doctors were in contact with her and calling her on updates. And they called it really cute, the COVID protocol, or the COVID cocktail, a cocktail of medications they gave him. I had no clue what they were. I just assumed he was in good hands. He was a young man. He would make it through this. And like he said, I was just going to be here for just a few days. And from there, it just started, a roller coaster started. He wasn't even in the ICU for a day or two. He was in the ER. They eventually moved him to ICU. And she was told that, I think the severe headache was from dehydration because he wasn't drinking enough when he was so sick. And they were telling her that his organs looked like they were shutting down. But once they got him on IVs, he was improving. They had bounced back. He was doing really good.
At what point did you find out that he was getting remdesivir?
Probably not till after he was out of the hospital. I had no idea. I had no idea at that time what was going on. I did not know.
It was just called the COVID cocktail, which was like remdesivir, baricitinib,
yes,
those types of drugs.
In the past, you always went to the hospital when you were sick and they took care of you. I had no idea hospitals became like this. They weren't helping people. They were giving them the worst medication they could give them. I had no idea that this was happening. So she took over and she would give us updates. We just tried to stay busy. And he went onto the 5th floor, I think was the COVID floor. He was there for a while. And he just eventually, they called us about 9 days into his hospital stay. They called us and said that they were putting him on a ventilator. And I didn't know either that most people that go on ventilators don't survive. I didn't know that either. And, they said that he would only be on it for a week. And he started going downhill from there. They let her start coming to the hospital because he was in critical condition. So they would let her come in and stay with him overnight. So we went up to his house and we took care of the kids. He had 3 children. We took care of them while she was able to go into the room and be with him. And she liked to go in overnight because that's when his numbers became worse. His O2 sat numbers would come down.
Sure, right.
And then it just kind of
became the lack of care, and he'd be sleeping. So before they vented him, was he communicating? Did you have any indication that maybe he was getting worse? Because at first he said he felt better.
Yes,
And then at some point,
it started getting worse. It was hard to talk to him, so we were texting. I would text him, so I figured I'm not going to disturb him in case he was sleeping. And when he got the text, he would be able to respond whenever he was awake. That's what we started texting. I think she might have talked to him, and we didn't want to take up that time with him and his children. We wanted him to be able to contact them and talk to them whenever he could, and then we text him.
and did he, at any point between the time that he went in and the time that he was vented, did he seem to know that he was declining, or was he still saying, "Hey, I'm getting better"? Or
Well, I know my daughter-in-law told us that he was really scared. He was getting scared because his breathing, I guess he was having problems breathing. I don't know if that was because they have the oxygen up so high. I know
yeah.
when he came out of I think it was the first time he came out of ICU and he went on the 5th floor. He was on a BiPAP, but it just so happened they forgot to pass on the BiPAP to the 5th floor. So he no longer had a BiPAP. So, but yeah, when he, on the 9th day, he was on the ventilator. And it was a few times we had to drive. We had to get someone to watch the kids so we could come down the hill because they said, this is it. You know, we're going to lose him. He's going.
Mm-hmm.
We drive flying back down the hill to go to the hospital. We did that a number of occasions. We had to do that.
Did any of you know, like, during this time, did you have any feelings, or have any indication that maybe something wasn't quite right, that maybe they needed to be doing something else?
Well, I kept thinking to myself, if it gets so bad, they'll give him ivermectin. I've heard really good things about ivermectin. They will give him ivermectin. They won't let him die. And I think at one time I did reach out to some of the doctors who were helping patients, outpatient, but by that point they said they couldn't help me. I did make a phone call to them. So about a week, just over a week before we lost him, we got a call. We were in church. We got a call from the hospital, and they said that if he survived, he was going to have a lung transplant. And I said, okay, you know, if that's what he has to have, you know, okay, we still have our son.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what was going on during that week. We were able to go and see him once in a while. And then the following Sunday, we were back in church again, and they gave us another call, and his lung collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
And
was that when he was on the vent?
Yes, his lung collapsed. He had a collapsed lung. And
Okay.
then, so we were there. We did not leave the hospital after that. We stayed there. And we were kind of taking turns visiting, you know, going with him. Me and my husband, we were exhausted. And, you know, we weren't getting much sleep. We were up there with the kids, and 3 o'clock every morning, we'd be waiting for the phone call, you know, to hear what the doctors were saying. We were so exhausted. We were sleeping in the car in the parking garage, and we had just gone in to see him, and we were up there just getting some napping in and praying. We prayed all the time. And my son knocked on the window and said that he was gone, that they had lost him. And our world's never been the same since. I can't imagine my poor grandkids growing up without a father, because you know how important fathers are in children's lives, and now they don't have a father. And I know the hospital did this to him. They could have saved him, but they chose not to, and I don't know why.
Because they rejected the ivermectin. They rejected anything that was proven to work. And in reality, if they had just treated him with that to begin with, when he went in and he first tested positive, they could have given him hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, budesonide if he needed it. But it sounds like he didn't really even have a breathing issue. Did they comment at all on his vaccination status? And I ask because that when he went in, that was right at the time that the federal government was trying to issue a nationwide mandate and there was so much pushback. And
I don't remember if the nurse asked me, but I'm sure they asked my daughter-in-law when she was admitting him all the paperwork. I'm pretty sure she would have told him that he was unvaccinated at that time.
yeah,
But
do you
even
think?
when we were able to go and see him in the hospital, there was a nurse in there and her assistant were telling us that we should go get our vaccines. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And no, I refused to get the vaccine.
So many similarities, with Lupe, because Lupe was in, at the same time as Jason. They were just years apart. And same thing. They told Lupe's family, you need a lung transplant.
Mm-hmm.
Her lung collapsed.
Yeah.
She was vaccine discriminated.
Yeah.
Same exact thing.
And all I think is, they were, one of the reasons I think they were killing patients off is to get everyone to run out and get the vaccine, because I had family members that did that. They went out
Yeah, for sure.
after my son passed because they weren't going to let that happen to themselves. And I'm just like, I was so disappointed. I didn't even want to talk to them for a while. It's like,
for sure. And
sure.
there's people that are probably listening and they're going, well, needing a lung transplant is pretty severe. So of course, but the reality is they told every family that. They told my family that I would need a lung transplant. And I certainly, these are the same set of lungs I've always had. So the reality is they lied a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We need to put them on the vent to give their lungs a rest. And it's the settings that usually cause the lung to collapse, or the too high, the high oxygen and that sort of thing. And so Jason, 40 years old, he was 40, right?
Yeah, he was healthy, very, very healthy guy.
Went in, he worked an outdoor job. Like, I mean, it's not like he was a paper pusher, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, they gave him remdesivir, baricitinib.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the day before, Lupe was vented, right? She was talking. She was saying, I'm hungry. I'm feeling better. Yeah.
Yeah, I suspect, there at some point, if Jason was getting afraid, I'm sure they were probably gaslighting him, like, you're a very sick man.
Yeah. And he was going to do anything they told him to do so he would get better. At one point, we were finally able to go in and see him. By that time he was on the vent. He was sedated, so we couldn't talk to him. We did. I prayed with him all the time when I went in there. But I think the first time we went in there, the nurse was showing me his lungs, how bad his lungs were. But now I look back, I'm sure it was because of the remdesivir. Mm-hmm. I don't think it was this. I think it was a remdesivir. Mm-hmm. Or lack for the lung infection if he had one. I don't know.
And what I've heard so many times was that, like, the average person doesn't necessarily know what they're looking at when they see a x-ray of the lungs, right? And so they can make it sound as horrible as, look at all of this, it's like glass, look at all of this, how the lungs are so full of, yes, it's so bad, the lungs are terrible. They did that to my family too, but my husband was a nurse, so my husband was like, you're not going to convince me that she's not going to get better. But it's, they do that. They did that over and over again. And, we've had so many, there have been doctors that have looked at people's medical records and they were like, no, budesonide would have cleared that up. That they, budesonide not only does it have antiviral properties, but it is an inhaled steroid that they use for preemies when their lungs aren't fully developed, and they could have easily, even if they didn't do ivermectin, they could have certainly done budesonide, but they knew that worked. And they knew that worked because Dr. Bartlett proved it worked in 2020. So they rejected, they would use albuterol instead. which I think Jason got. Nothing wrong with albuterol, but it's just not for pneumonia.
You know, when Jason went to the hospital, he was breathing for fine. He didn't even go to the hospital for breathing.
Right. He went for headache.
That's telling.
He wasn't short of breath. He wasn't coughing. He wasn't any of those things when I was driving into the hospital. He was back there just sleeping.
Yeah.
That's all he wanted to do was sleep.
Just had a headache.
Yeah.
It was the remdesivir that caused.
Yeah. And do you know how many doses he got of remdesivir?
I believe he had 10 days.
10 days. So they gave him a double round of remdesivir because 5 days and then 5 days.
Yeah, I'm most certain I heard he had 10 days because by day 9, and a lot of us discussed that in a meeting we had, a lot of them by day 9, they were really going downhill. They all needed to be ventilated.
Yeah, right, exactly. So they had 10 days before they put him on the ventilator, 9 days. He went in on August 17th, rented on August 26th, about then. And then
6th.
And he passed away on
the 13th of
September 13th of 2021.
Yeah.
2 weeks after the Biden administration declared the pandemic of the unvaccinated. Actually,
And my son said, you know, when he passed, he was trying to get the nurse to come in. The nurse wasn't doing anything. So the nurse left and went to go talk to a doctor, but the doctor was busy. So she didn't come back for a while. And then she finally came back in. When we got in there, we waited for the doctor to come in. I go, what happened? You know, and he really couldn't explain it. We stayed with my son for quite a while. And then when we left, nobody would even look up at us. They all looked down, looked away. Nobody had anything to say to us. Very cold.
And you weren't in the room when he passed either.
We were in the car, but we were able to come to the room and spend some time with him.
Okay.
And we still had him on the machine.
Is there anything else about the hospital experience you want people to know?
I don't know. It was totally different than when my husband went in 10 months later.
Talk a little bit about that, because your husband went in.
My husband, Jason's father, 10 months later, he got sick with COVID. We did our best to keep him out of the hospital because we know what happens there. So we went to urgent care 3 times, and 2 of the nurses I knew, and they were doing their best to try to keep him out, giving him antibiotics. We were doing breathing treatments, but the last time we went to the urgent care, he had developed pneumonia on one side. So she gave him a corticosteroid injection and gave him orders to go to the hospital. That would be St. Agnes ER to get outpatient antibiotic treatment. And he would only be there for a couple of hours. And she had the order. We gave them the order. Carl went in. I wasn't able to go with him. I wasn't allowed to go in there. And so he went in there and gave him the order, waited a couple of hours, and the doctor says this is against our protocol, and sent him out the door. So 2 days later, I had contacted my doctor that I had worked for many years for, and he contacted his infectious disease friend. And we could either go to Madera or we could go to St. Agnes, because he was going to be at both places the next day. So we chose to go to Madera since St. Agnes showed us the door. So we went in there, and they admitted him. I had to go get tested to make sure I could go in, make sure I was clear of COVID. So I was able to go in, and by that afternoon, thank goodness I was in the room by that time. The nurse brought a bag of remdesivir up and asked, can we give this to your husband? I said, absolutely not. I said, that killed our son. You're not going to give this to my husband. The next morning, they were treating him with oxygen, corticosteroids, and 2 different antibiotics is what they were treating him with. So the next morning, I met up with the infectious disease doctor right outside his hospital room. So the doctor told me, I'm going to start your husband on remdesivir. I said, no, you're not. Absolutely not. That killed my son, our son. You're not going to start him on that. So he says, well, I'll just go in there and ask him myself. So I could hear from outside the door that my husband said, no, we're not going to do that. So the doctor was very offended. He left. But the hospitalist that was treating my husband said, you guys don't need that. He does not need that for treatment. And so my husband had gone in on a Monday. He was discharged on Friday with oxygen and I think a few more days of antibiotics, but he did fine. My husband was 24 years older than our son. And he had other conditions, but he survived it because he was not given that remdesivir. And if I had not seen this, I would have lost him too.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. The difference was the protocol, the protocol that they used. And that is one thing that we see over and over again with survivors is the only way to survive was to say no or interrupt what their protocol, their tactics, their standard of care was. And that's exactly, this is exactly the type of comparison that we hear in families where one person got the hospital protocol, the standard of care, which was remdesivir and all these other drugs, and died.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody else said no and lived. So it is, that's why Laura Bartlett's has the I do not consent form.com now, so people can have that ready. And it's, I do not consent to remdesivir. I do not consent to, vaccinations or anything. And they have to abide by that. So, to talk a little bit about the effect this has had on your life, for one, and how it's changed, like everybody's world, so to speak.
We take one day at a time, and we lean on me and my husband lean on each other. It's really hard to lose, one of your children. We should have, they should have outlived us. We shouldn't have outlived them. And it's the hardest thing in the world to know you've lost your child. I've got a broken heart that'll never heal. And I know my grandkids miss their dad. They need their dad in their life. He would teach them things. He loved them. Every picture I have of him, he's always holding one of his kids, and he loved his children so much. And for them to grow up without a father in their lives is a difficult thing, especially nowadays. So it's been really hard on all of us.
And you and Heidi eventually met and started holding signs outside the hospital, but this is a bit more than holding signs. These are big, amazing signs that show anybody passing by, show the world that real people were killed by the protocol. These are real faces.
Mm-hmm. We started getting a lot more people reacting once we had pictures of them. A lot more people react now. And it seems like we have a lot more people recognizing what's happening when we first started. It was after my son, my son died in September. It was in December. I met a group on the corner of Herndon and Blackstone holding signs. And I had heard there were people out there, but I didn't know how to contact any of them. So I rushed as fast as I could to park my car because it looked like they were breaking up. They were getting ready to go home, and I caught a few of them. And they told me what they were doing. And from then on, I was there too. We used to do those corners, and then we started doing once a week. We will go to one hospital once a week to hold our signs and educate. We want to educate people, of what they need to do if they do have to go to the hospital, what's going on and what they need to do and not do.
Exactly, because they're still using the protocols and they're not going to stop murdering people. So the only tool we have is to educate the public in order to save lives, so people don't have to live with the heartbreak that we have to live with from losing loved ones.
Yeah. And I think people can see the pattern here with regard to when it was, but you're right, it's still happening. And, the hospitals here. Here's another sign that you guys Not sure where this is, but
That's gotta be
That's St. Agnes
St.
Hospital.
Agnes.
that's St. Agnes.
We switch all the hospitals.
And yeah, when it gets windy and it gets rainy, we're still out there.
Hell and everything. Because
I want to play a little video and you guys, you video every week because I get the videos.
Most times we do, yeah.
And I love the videos. The videos make their way around social media, and
just like there's fraud in Minnesota, there is fraud beyond your wildest dreams in California. When you're investigating the fraud in California, investigate the fraud surrounding COVID in all the hospitals.
Yes. So
hospitals, investigate them.
Right. They need to be investigated for not just for fraud, but that's a great start. But for the crimes against humanity that they perpetrated. And I know you two are always out there every Friday. Other people who are in Fresno or in the Fresno area or close enough to Fresno that want to join you, they can reach out to us on our website and I'll get them in contact with you. And then because you want more people out there. We know this happened to 1.6 million people in America. We know it happened to over 120,000 people in California. And so there is, in Texas, where I am, is not far behind California. We're number 2. So it's important for people to stand up if they think anything is wrong. If they suspect something was wrong with their loved one in the hospital, they need to stand up, tell their story, and if they're in your area, join you. So I'm going to ask you a 2-part question here. So the first part is I guess in hindsight, any words you would have for somebody who is going through this now, because there are people going through it now, or who have been through it and are thinking they may want to come out public or are going through it.
I think they should share their stories. They can contact you to help to get their loved one out. Or if they need help, they need to contact people that can do that. Correct?
Yeah, they would. And it's you illustrated really strongly the importance of advocacy and making sure that you advocate very strongly for your loved one. And no matter, even if the doctor's offended, saying no to remdesivir, baricitinib, any drugs that I say this is the test for any doctor. You ask the doctor how they would have treated COVID, how they will treat COVID. If it's anything other than budesonide, ivermectin, excuse me, then get a new doctor, right? And then tell us about some of your favorite memories of Jason.
Our favorite memories?
Yeah.
Oh, he was the sweetest boy. He would do anything I asked. He was always a good kid, always loving. He was a great soccer player. He was the captain on his team in high school. He loved soccer. He was just a natural. We did get to play soccer 1 or 2 years as adults. When he got old enough, we got to play soccer together, which was fun. I coached quite a few of his teams with him and his brother, that was great. I was able to coach him, and there's a lot of stories out there. It's hard to think of them, I know I'm going to think a lot of them when I'm going home that I wish I had shared, but he was just a great guy. Really good. He appreciated us as parents, and we loved him.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you telling your story, and I'm incredibly sorry about your son.
Shouldn't have
Can't-
happened.
should not have happened. And I am glad that you and Heidi are going to hold the hospitals accountable. And I hope more people will get involved and help you do that.
That would be awesome. We need
Yeah.
help.
And not just for Jason, but for all these people.
Right.
And this is just some of them. So I know there's more that you all have been in contact with. So this is just some of them, some of the faces in Fresno. So I appreciate you. Heidi, do you have any parting words?
Share your story,
Yes.
right? Because it's easily to ignore a few hundred. When thousands come out and share their stories is when these protocols are going to stop.
Yep.
When it's when they're going to actually acknowledge what happened. And, you know, we pray to see some kind of accountability so this isn't ever repeated again. I mean, you can't just murder people in U.S. hospitals on U.S. soil and get away with it.
Not if everybody stands up
Yeah.
Exactly.
and
So
says no.
we need to all share our stories
Yes.
everywhere.
Well, thank you,
Everybody.
ladies. This is a great start. Thank you. And, you know, God bless on the mission that you're on.
We'll never
Thank
quit.
you. Never. No.
It'll be taken off the market when enough people stand up, I guess. I mean, because they are still using it.
And the
And
vaccine.
they're starting to use it for RSV and flu and all sorts of crazy stuff we see. So, all right. Thank you very much.